Today we're moving through a cycle. If you look at this historically, people have started to question, why is this happening? Why am I paying so much at the grocery store? And today I'm going to give you the answers for that. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what's really happening and why, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. The very first thing is the recession and the crisis of 2023. A lot of different points are converging right now, and we are entering that moment today. The second thing I want to look at is the economic indicator. So I'm actually going to show you the charts. I'm going to show you the statistics that you need, that will be that ammunition to use to make the right decisions for yourself, for your family. Look, you don't want to miss this. Let's begin. It seems like every economist and analyst today are saying that there is a recession for 2023, and I'm talking about official admissions. If you look at what they are really saying in depth, it's essentially that it will be a mild recession, stocks will do pretty good, and at the end of the year, everything's going to be a-okay as the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, I am not a soothsayer, but I can certainly tell you that when the majority looks in one direction, it tends to be the exact opposite. It could be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and only time will tell. The number one indicator you need to be watching is what the Federal Reserve does with interest rates and their balance sheet. This is so important. How much money is the Federal Reserve printing? You might not think that it's directly correlated, and you might say to yourself that this happened before, but you know what? It's not exactly the case. Look, if you follow it, it is so precise that it's scary. Follow what they do with the balance sheet. Follow what's going on with interest rates, and you will see. Now, there could be some catastrophic event that changes the way things occur, but as of right now, that isn't put into, it's not baked into the cake. So you got to watch the details. And of course, if you're subscribed to this channel, you're going to get all of that. Look, the House passes the $1.7 trillion bill for federal, funding the federal government through September. Initially, it was supposed to be in September, if you're aware of this. And it was supposed to be to the end of September, and they said, no, we don't have the bill ready. We want to, give us some time, 90 days. So they got an extension on that for 90 days. Then they needed another week. Then they said, okay, we got this 4,000 plus page bill, and we want you to pass it right now. Of course, that got passed. So now you got to pay another $1.7 trillion. Every year the budget gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and what that means is, coming from the fiscal side, the government side, they are allowing even more spending to take place. Where it's spent and how that's all used, it really depends. That some people, they agree with one thing or another. It all depends. Look, you can see it for yourself. I know that some people just refuse to acknowledge what happens here, that the money creates, the more money out there actually creates inflation. It devalues the total pool of cash. That's the way it works. Whether it goes in one place or another, it eventually dilutes the value of the cash that you hold. This is where we get off into the deep end. Shoplifting fuels a $94.5 billion problem at American stores. Here you are seeing toothpaste, yes, that's right, toothpaste being locked up. Now, it depends on what area you're in, of course, but I've seen all kinds of places. San Francisco, nice areas of San Francisco where they're locking up just about everything. And there are, speculation about why this is the case and what have you. The important part here is that we are seeing more criminal activity going on now than we did before. More poverty, more homelessness, worse scenario for many people. Even there's I would consider it to be, sort of an unreported group. And that is the individuals who are not necessarily coming up in any of these stats. And they have themselves in a position where they cannot afford their lives. They cannot afford to live where they are. And maybe they're living 3, 4, 5 people to one household. And that's not their optimal living standards, but they have to do it. And they have issues, this and that. And how many of these people are not coming up on any stat? Well, that number is bigger than you would presume. Disneyland is charging $185 for this luxurious drink served in a cookie cup. I don't know, it kind of just looks like an espresso cup sized ice cream cone with somebody ate the ice cream of it. Anyway, the point is, you're looking at a group of people who can spend $185 on this nonsense, and then another group who literally can't afford to eat. And that disparity today is larger than we have ever seen in history. Here's another example. Super yachts flock to the Caribbean for lavish year-end parties. So these things have been going on forever, but the more money they print, the worse it gets. Let me explain what I mean. Interest rates refer to the cost of borrowing money, and they can have a significant impact on the economy and individual financial well-being. When interest rates rise, it generally becomes more expensive to borrow money, which can have a negative impact on individuals and businesses that rely on borrowing to finance their operations or make large purchases. Historically, rising interest rates have also been associated with increasing in the cost of living, as higher interest rates can lead to higher prices for goods and services. This can disproportionately impact lower income individuals and families who may have a harder time absorbing the increased costs. The divide between the rich and the poor, therefore, can be exacerbated by rising interest rates, as the wealthy are able to weather the negative impacts of higher interest rates more easily due to their financial resources. One famous quote about inflation, which is often closely tied to interest rates, is by economist Milton Friedman, who said, quote, "Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon in the sense that it is and can be produced only by a more rapid increase in the quantity of money than in output." This quote highlights the idea that inflation, and by extension rising interest rates, can often be driven by the supply of money in the economy, and that efforts to control inflation may need to focus on the monetary policy decisions made by central banks. That's the world we live in today, where they pump more and more money into the system, and yet we get less and less and less. I'm trying to draw those conclusions for you here in this video and on my Twitter, little plug here, as well as all the videos that I do. I'm trying to bring this in depth, and I'm going to do more. My plan for 2023 is massive. You got to stick with me, all right? Leading economic indicators year over year, this is not good, okay? We saw it drop to this level back in 2020. Actually, it was already falling in 2019. And if it wasn't for that massive stimulus that they provided, well, then it would have headed into a recession for 2020 anyway. But they pumped it up, trillions here, trillions there. And so that delayed the inevitable. And you could just see this. There are many, many different indicators, but we look at that as just one. Most supply chain managers expect problems to continue at least through 2024. Now, this is crazy because the prices have come down considerably. There are no ships waiting off the coast for LA Long Beach anymore. A lot of that has been resolved. But here they're still saying 2024. This is unbelievable. Bloated inventories have kept warehouses packed, and respondents saw a 400% increase in warehouse prices as space decreases. There's an issue. There's a very big issue, and that's they ordered way too much. And a recession makes it so that people say, I'm not going to buy that 7th flat screen TV. I'm good with 6. I mean, it's crazy the way that people spend and the things they spend money on. I think it's much better to spend on experiences rather than on tangible things. But there's a lot of people out there who like stuff. Anyway, the point is they have way too much inventory, like way too much inventory. And a lot of these retailers, yes, they're trying to liquidate it and they're trying to move it. But at the same time, some of them are saying, well, maybe we can get away with it. It depends on the area. It really does. Because if the people in that area surrounding that retail location do not have the wealth to expend, then they're going to be saying no. And that means hard hitting on the sales of the companies. If the companies are getting hit, what do you think is going to happen to their stocks? If their stocks get hit, yes, that's right, layoffs will ensue. So here we have it. You're looking at basically just showing us where people are moving to. So this is specifically about America. And a lot of people, I mean, every year people are coming in and people are leaving. And you could see they're going from America, population of Americans abroad as reported by receiving countries. Mexico at the top of the list. Cheaper cost of living, of course. And you could argue great weather. Canada is next down there in the proximity for obvious reasons. And then we have the UK, Germany, Australia, and so on. While the United States is the top destination for immigrants worldwide, hosting about 3 times as many immigrants as runners-up Germany and Saudi Arabia, it's a paltry 26th in terms of sending immigrants abroad. Our analysis of UN data finds that just 1 American emigrates for every 6 Indians or 4 Mexicans. So they're just talking about this and what happens, and I do believe that you are going to see a big trend come 2023, and that is people are moving out. They cannot afford the cost of living that they're experiencing today, and if that continues into the next year, 2023, we're going to be in for a rude awakening, really, truly. Now, I don't know what people have in mind. That was Tesla, by the way, but you can see what happens with people's stocks. I'll just interject myself right here and suggest to you that if you look at what's going on with people's investments, they had been riding on the fact that some stocks would go up forever and ever and ever, but that isn't the case. So watch out very carefully as we move through. Look at what the central banks are doing. That's the key indicator that you must be paying attention to, whether you want to drop in some cash. This whole nonsense of dollar cost averaging is really, I don't understand where that came from, but that is, I don't want to give it, I can't give financial advice, and I don't want to give financial advice, but I'm just going to say that if it was my buddy asking me, should I dollar cost average, I would say absolutely not. And I would, anyway, that's besides the point. I could do a whole video about that. Bankers in New York and London are bracing for year-end bonuses that recruiters estimate are 30 to 50% lower, while some may receive none at all, as deal-making sputters and economic gloom sets to take hold. You look at that, we've seen this before, and ultimately what that means is these companies, they're ready to lay people off and already have begun laying people off. They're not going to push this put out more capital at this time. That gives you an insight as to what the companies are feeling. The same thing with CEOs. They are saying, we don't like what's happening here. A lot of them have been quitting. We've seen some big changes on the top level. Gold at 4,000. Is that the case? Well, with all the turmoil, you could see something like gold, these safe havens that could start to attract a lot of capital towards them. 4,000, I don't know. I don't make any price predictions, but certainly it becomes more attractive if the value of bonds, like if the return of a bond is going to come down, then gold suddenly becomes more attractive in that respect. Right now, at the time of this recording, it's approximately 1,800 and has been doing well over the last little while. This is just talking about the crash-riddled driverless startup Waymo begins picking up customers in LA in its EV unit. It's in its EV without steering wheels or pedals. Whether we like it or not, whether these things are crashing all over the place, these are coming. Automation, robotics are coming. You must do what you can today to sort of proof yourself against this. Is your job right now, today, is your job at any risk in the next, what you think is 10 years from now? If it's 10 years from now, it's likely going to be 5 years from now. And so that means you got to retool and retrain and up what the skills you have today, as well as find a secondary income, because that's going to help you out. You need the inflation. See, the things hitting you from all sides. We're being pushed over here from the automation, the robotics from one side, and we're being squeezed on this side from the inflationary factors. And unless you figure out a way to find your way up, you're going to be in trouble and it's going to squeeze you down. That's the way I look at it. I hope you appreciated this information. I'm just trying to bring the reality to you. You've got to hit that subscribe button down below. It's right next to the like button, and I'm going to bring you a video tomorrow. Take care.